Hello BookTube, it's Becky from Becky Writes. This is Becky Reads, and this is a 12 Days of Christmas vlog. The 12 Days of Christmas run from December 25th till January 6th, so I am bringing you a daily vlog. This one is my top 5 favorite fiction books of 2016. Now, these really are in no particular order because I loved all of them. These were all 5-star reads. These are all books I've thought about again and again throughout the year, and all of these books are books I want to reread, so I will probably be rereading them in 2017 because they were just fantastic. They're books I recommend again and again, and I love them, so let's just jump in. The first book I am mentioning is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This is such a good book. This is the story of Agnieszka. It is a fairy tale, but it's not based on any traditional fairy tales. It has the influence of Polish fairy tales because Naomi Novik's grandparents, I believe, emigrated from Poland to the United States, so she grew up with all of these wonderful Polish fairy tales, and so while this story isn't a retelling of any specific fairy tale, it is certainly influenced by fairy tales. I love this story because Agnieszka, the main character, is free-spirited and independent, and she really just dances to the beat of her own drum, and the relationship between herself and the dragon is beautiful. But I also love that the small romance that happens in this book is secondary to the main friendship of the story. It is a book that's about girl power without beating you on the head about girl power. It's the story of rethinking how we do things from a feminine angle. It's a story about nature. It's a story about all the sort of fairy tale elements, but slightly askew. The valorous knight is not always what they seem. The ones with the most force are not always the ones who come out on top. I just found this great. I think the big bag evil is a really fascinating character in this. I just love the world that's created, and Uprooted has been one of my favorites all year. The second book I want to mention is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. This is the only literary fiction that I have on this list, and it's one of the few pieces of literary fiction I've read all year. This book is a marvel. It is stark and beautiful. The language on a sentence-by-sentence level is gorgeous. This is the story, a true story, of the last woman to be executed in Iceland for committing a heinous crime in the 1880s, and it is about her last weeks, her journey to a farm where she's being held, and then her journey to her execution, and her relationships with the people that she meets, and the people who hear her story, and it is just one of the most evocative books I've read. I was intimidated by it, but as you can see, I loved it. The language, again, the command of language is incredible. Hannah Kent is younger than I am, so I think we'll have a wonderful career of reading her beautiful language. This is just a gorgeous book. It is a book that I've recommended to many, many people. In fact, I gave this as a gift to a friend, and I recommended it to my history advisor from college when I saw her this summer, and she loved it. If you are someone who loves language, and if you are someone who loves things that are evocative, then Burial Rites, this is a good one. This is such a good one. The third book on my list is Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. This was one of the first books I read all year, and I loved it. This is the first part of a duology that follows time travelers. One of the characters is a girl who has no idea she's a time traveler. The other character is a guy who has known he's a time traveler his whole life. The girl is from our modern era. The guy is from the 1700s. He is a free, mixed race black man who is living in this precarious life as a free man in the 1700s, and the young lady is a violin protege from the 2000s, and their adventures together trying to find something before bad guys find it is a basic premise, and it's just fun, but it also offers some great social commentary on race and class and relationships that I think couldn't be done if you didn't have the time traveling element, because you're bringing two people from two different time periods together and that contrast. I loved this. I thought it was so fun. I think this is one of the most beautiful covers of the year, of course, and it has just stuck with me. The sequel comes out in January, so in a couple of weeks from now. I cannot wait to read Wayfarer. It takes the time traveling trope, which I have read books that did not do it well, and it just plays with it and makes it wonderful. So I would highly, highly recommend Passenger. And now I read a lot of fantasy, but two of the books on my list are historical fiction, and the second one is Jane, Steele by Lyndsay Faye. You guys, I loved this book. I did a spoiler-free review about it, and I thought this was fantastic. This is a historical fiction that is heavily influenced by Jane Eyre, but it is not a Jane Eyre retelling. The book Jane Eyre exists in the world of Jane Steele, and in fact, Jane Steele's reading of Jane Eyre is the reason she decided to write her biography, according to the way this is set up. I love it. There is the whole tropes of the neglected child who was sent to a terrible boarding school and could easily have been taken advantage of again and again and again, But Jane Steele is not about to let that happen. She becomes a murderer because she does not put up with the foolishness of men who think that they can treat women like crap, and whenever they try to harm her or other vulnerable women in her life, she kills them. I think that this is a wonderful book. I love Jane Steele as a character. I love the diversity of characters. In the house are veterans of the Anglo-Sikh Wars, and just this wonderful rich time period that is so overlooked, that happened during the Victorian era but isn't mentioned in a lot of Victorian literature. This is just fantastic. I have wanted to reread it. It is so great. I went out and bought it. I really can't sing its praises enough. This was one of my favorite reads of the year, and I would recommend it to anybody who loves Jane Eyre or hates Jane Eyre. Anybody who likes historical fiction or isn't sure how they feel about historical fiction, this book I think will appeal to the gamut of readers. I mean, she says, "Reader, I murdered him." What more do you want? Really, what more do you want? And finally is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. You guys knew this was going to be on my top 5 list. I loved everything that I read by Leigh Bardugo this year, and although I haven't read Cougar Kingdom yet, this is my favorite of hers. This is the best book she's written that I've read. This just shows how much her writing has improved. The characters, the diversity, the world is just everything that YA fantasy can be. It really is. This to me is one of the epitome books that really sets the bar high for what YA fantasy can be and can do. I've heard some criticisms about the heist. I'm not a heist person, so I haven't read tons of heist novels, but I love this because of the characters. The characters are so engaging. They are so rich. There is so much diversity, both racial and ethnic diversity, sexuality diversity, learning ability diversity, physical ability diversity. I mean, the whole range is represented here, and it's done seamlessly. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel tokenistic. It feels completely a part of the world and the gang of the dregs that's been created. And if you haven't read Leigh Bardugo yet, if you haven't read the Grisha trilogy, if you haven't picked up Six of Crows and you at all like fantasy, this is such a great world to dive into. You don't have to read the Grisha trilogy. It helps, but you don't have to read it to dive into Six of Crows. So I recommend this one. It's perhaps my favorite, although I loved all of these books, but if I had to pick one, it would be Six of Crows. It's just so, so great. And those are my top 5 fiction books of the year. Comment down below and let me know what one of your favorite fiction books of the year was. I am always looking for recommendations, and so if it's a favorite of yours, it might become a favorite of mine. Hope you guys are all doing well, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!